A racist attack by outlaw bikers in an Indiana bar. Montreal's Rizzuto clan has its top members arrested on murder charges. All of that and much more on this week's edition of Organized Crime News Weekly. Welcome back to Organized Crime News Weekly. This is the weekly show where we discuss the goings-on in the global criminal underworld. Before I start, I just want to remind everyone to please like, share, and subscribe so we can help grow this channel. 6 members of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club in Fort Wayne, Indiana, have been arrested for the assault they committed on May 30th against an African-American man named James Simmons at a pub. In an attack that was recorded by another customer at Fort Wayne's Pike's Pub, the Outlaw members brutally assaulted Simmons while hurling racial slurs at him. This incident allegedly kicked off due to Simmons not paying his bar tab when, according to a witness, he was preparing to pull his card out to pay his tab. Members of the Outlaws then confronted him and told him to leave. When Simmons went to leave, the boyfriend of the bar owner, Douglas Zuber, also a member of the Outlaws, demanded he pay his tab before he left, before calling him a racial expletive. The Outlaws then surrounded him, yelling at him to pay his tab, before the fight broke out when an Outlaw member punched Simmons in the face. Despite getting in a few punches, Simmons was overpowered by the gang as they threw him to the ground, punching and kicking him repeatedly while yelling racial slurs at him. The witness who spoke about the incident said that police weren't called until after the brawl had occurred. When the police arrived, Simmons was in fair condition and initially refused to provide any information on his attackers. But just last week, Simmons announced that he will indeed be pressing charges. The recording of this event went viral on social media in its immediate aftermath, with local officials condemning the incident as well as rallies occurring at Pike's Pub by local residents in protest of this hateful act, with some dubbing it a hate crime. The 6 men that have been arrested include Douglas Zuber, the boyfriend of the bar owner, who is sticking to his story of trying to get Simmons to pay his tab when he refused. Zuber is also accused of being the man yelling the racial slurs heard in the video. Him and the other co-accused face charges which include criminal recklessness, battery resulting in serious injury, and strangulation. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club have been at the center of criminal accusations in Fort Wayne going back more than a decade. One notable incident occurred back in 2012 when several police agencies, including the FBI, raided their Fort Wayne clubhouse where they seized 35 guns and cocaine among other drugs. Fort Wayne Outlaws have also been accused and arrested for various charges over the years that include illegal gambling, fraud, and extortion. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club is one of the largest motorcycle clubs in the world. They are said to be the 3rd largest internationally behind the Hells Angels and the Banditos. They are considered the oldest outlaw motorcycle club in the United States. They are said to have formed back in 1935 in Chicago. The Midwestern United States has always been its stronghold. The Outlaws have more than 4,000 members across the world, with more than 400 chapters in 43 different countries. Outlaw motorcycle clubs, such as the Outlaws and the Hells Angels, have a long history of racism. Their clubs prohibit black men from joining their ranks. So it's not surprising to see these outlaw members engaging in a racial attack. And this was a pretty cowardly attack as well, as 6 of them ganged up on just one man. But stories like these just goes to show that these people should not be romanticized in any way, despite the fact that they engage in criminal activity. Many of their members are also very prejudiced and hold these deplorable views. So I think it's a good reminder never to glamorize this lifestyle and the people that engage in it, as many of them prove time and again that they hold the most atrocious beliefs. Going to the Philippines, approximately 1.3 tons of shabu. Shabu is a slang term for meth used in Southeast Asia, worth over 7 billion Philippines pesos, or $124,700, was recovered floating in the waters off the Philippines province of Pangasinan by the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. The massive haul was recovered by local fishermen who found that the shabu packs contained Chinese markings, typically associated with Chinese triads, more specifically the powerful Samgor. Samgor is arguably one of the most powerful criminal organizations throughout the whole world. Also known by its members as the Company, it comprises 5 of the most powerful Chinese and Taiwanese triad groups, including the Chinese 14K, Sun Yiyan, Wo Xing Wo, Big Circle Boys, and Taiwan's Bamboo Union. They are said to control 40 to 70% of the drug market in Southeast Asia, with annual revenues of approximately $17 billion a year. Samgor was founded by Seichi Lop, who has been dubbed Asia's El Chapo. Under Say's leadership, Samgor managed to make contacts with tribal groups in Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle to set up meth labs to produce much of the meth that is trafficked throughout Southeast Asia and into Australia and New Zealand. Say was arrested in the Netherlands back in 2021 and since then has been extradited to Australia, where he is set to face charges for running Samgor's massive methamphetamine and heroin empire. One indication by the Philippines that Samgor was behind these shipments of meth is the fact that Samgor has become notable for its method of dumping drugs on the high seas to later be picked up by local collaborators. These are just accusations at this point. No arrests have been made of Samgor affiliates in this drug bust. Some have said that Samgor has diminished after Seichi Lop's arrest in 2021, but I think stories like this go to prove that Samgor is very much still alive and thriving and still the dominant player in Southeast Asia's drug market. Samgor is also said to be heavily based in Canada, operating along the United States border, where its members operate illegal marijuana plantations in conjunction with the Chinese Communist Party in order to generate vast profits for the CCP's coffers, as well as facilitating money laundering for criminal groups across the globe. But we shall see what, if anything, becomes of these arrests, as Samgor continues to flourish in Southeast Asia's profitable methamphetamine trade. Going to South Africa, notorious Cape Town underworld figure Andre Nod was gunned down on the afternoon of June 12th when a vehicle pulled up next to him and 3 of his associates and opened fire. As well as Nod being killed, one of his associates was wounded in the attack. Nod's murder comes as he was on trial for the 2017 murder of international steroid smuggler Brian Weinstein. Nod is the 5th person accused of Weinstein's murder to be killed. His death comes 7 months after the murder of his close friend and associate Mark Liffman, who was also on trial for the Weinstein killing. Both Nod and Liffman were heavily involved in Cape Town's security industry. Nod started out as a bouncer in nightclubs in the 1990s before going on to form his own security companies. Gangs in Cape Town are heavily involved in the security industry, which they use as vehicles to extort nightclubs as part of protection rackets. The gangs that control security companies provide their own men as bouncers at the clubs and often use their control over the clubs to sell drugs on the premises. Nod partnered with his close friend Liffman in many of these security companies. One of these companies was shut down around 2011 over allegations that it was not registered with the proper channels. But both Liffman and Nod were cleared of any criminal charges related to their activities with these security companies. Starting in 2017, Kingpin Nafiz Modak tried to seize control of bouncer operations in Cape Town, which led to a violent power struggle with Nod and Liffman's group. At the same time as this feud between these groups erupted, Nod and Liffman came into conflict with the powerful 28s gang due to the fact that both of them were closely tied to the 28s gang's rival, the 27s gang. The 28s gang and the 27s gang make up 2 of the 3 gangs that make up the so-called numbers gangs, the third being the 26 gang. These gangs were formed in South Africa's prison system and have fought brutal wars with each other over the decades inside and outside of South Africa's prisons. The man that Nod and Liffman were on trial for murdering before their own killings, Brian Weinstein, was closely aligned to the 28s gang and was said to have come into great conflict with Liffman over property deals. It is also alleged that Nod and Liffman wanted to take over Weinstein's lucrative steroid distribution business. Prior to his killing a couple days ago, Nod had survived 2 previous attempts on his life. In 2014, he was shot twice in the leg outside a bar in a shooting that Nod claimed stemmed from an argument related to a woman. He was also targeted in another shooting in 2019. But an interesting story that showcases the brutal turf wars between street gangs in South Africa over the control of extorting nightclubs. Nod is just another casualty in this war, but gang violence in South Africa continues to be endemic. It remains unknown who exactly would be responsible for Nod's killing. It's unknown if the people who are responsible for his murder were also responsible for Liffman's murder. 2 men were arrested for Liffman's murder back when it occurred, and both of those men were linked to prominent security companies companies in Cape Town. But we shall see what the fallout for Nod's murder will be. I'm assuming Nod's murder will cause a seismic shift in the Cape Town underworld, as he was considered to be one of its most prominent players. Our final story this week, a pretty shocking development. On the morning of June 12th, police services in Montreal, Quebec, and surrounding cities carried out the largest raid against organized crime in a decade in what has been dubbed Project Alliance. Most heavily targeted are the Sicilian Rizzuto Mafia clan, along with members of the Hells Angels and members of local street gangs. 11 men were arrested, including Leonardo Rizzuto, the current leader of the Rizzuto clan, and the son of legendary Montreal mob boss Vito Rizzuto. Leonardo was arrested along with his co-leader of the Rizzuto mob, Stefano Sollecito, his street boss David Barbario, along with influential mobsters Vito Salvaggio and Pietro Diadamo. These men, along with the other accused individuals, are charged with 6 murder plots carried out between 2011 and 2021. The charges include first-degree murder for the 2011 killing of Lorenzo Lopresti, as well as plotting the murders of other prominent individuals of Montreal's underworld, including Marino Gallo, Reynald Desjardins, Joe DeMallo, Sal Montagna, and Antonio Pietrantonio, amongst many other murders. These arrests come almost 3 years to the day that former mob hitman Frederick Silva started cooperating and providing information to the police on many of the murders he carried out since joining the Rizzutos in 2014. In 2014, Silva joined the Rizzutos after he allegedly orchestrated the murder of gang leader Ducarme Joseph. Joseph is thought to have been responsible for the murder of Nick Rizzuto, Leonardo Rizzuto's older brother, and Vito Rizzuto's oldest son, who was killed back in 2009. Silva is said to have provided numerous video statements to the police discussing about 60 murder plots going back to the late 1990s. He was arrested back in February 2019, and in 2021, a year before he decided to cooperate, he was convicted for his role in 4 murders and was sentenced to life in prison. But this is a shocking development in the Montreal underworld. Since Vito Rizzuto's death, the criminal underworld in Montreal and the surrounding area has been in great upheaval, with various groups such as the Hells Angels, Blood Family Mafia, and other groups in the area trying to vie for the #1 spot in the criminal underworld that was once held by the Rizzutos. The fact that all of the Rizzuto clan's top leaders have been arrested is pretty major, and the fact that they are all charged with numerous murder plots makes it even more shocking. And Frederick Silva was committing murders on behalf of groups such as the Rizzuto clan and the Hells Angels at a time when these groups were trying to assert themselves in Montreal's increasingly unstable criminal underworld. This operation is said to be the first phase in Project Alliance. It's possible that other prominent members of Quebec's underworld are going to be scooped up in these raids, but Silva's testimony is sure to have a very damaging impact on the already fragile Rizzuto clan. How these murder charges pan out remains to be seen. Leonardo Rizzuto took over the Rizzuto family in the wake of his father Vito's death in 2013, and since then he has been unable to establish the order and diplomacy that his father managed to establish between all of Montreal's criminal factions. Leonardo Rizzuto is a lawyer by trade. He has never faced any serious allegations such as these, so it remains to be seen how he deals with these allegations, but we shall see how these charges pan out and what becomes of Montreal's once almighty Rizzuto crime family. Alright, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Organized Crime News Weekly. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back next week to report on more stories concerning the global criminal underworld. Thank you so much for tuning in.